Well, the idea that people who work in a plant ought to own it is just deeply built into working class culture. So right around here at the early Industrial Revolution in the late 19th century, working people simply took for granted that, yes, of course, the workers should own the mills in which they work. Anything else is an attack on our fundamental rights as free citizens. They also took for granted that wage labor is hardly different from slavery. It's different only because it's temporary, and then you can be free. One of the ways you can be free is by owning your own plants. That was not an exotic view. That was Abraham Lincoln's view. In fact, it was a principle of the Republican Party in the late 19th century. It's taken a lot of effort to drive those ideas out of people's heads, but they're still there, and they're very relevant.
Ils avaient beaucoup critiqué les États-nations en leur attribuant tout un tas de désastres. Mais quelle est la place de l'État?
Well, we have to be careful about this. I mean, we live in this world, not in some imaginary world. In this world, there happen to be major tyrannical institutions called corporations, which are about as close to totalitarian as any institutions humans have devised. They're almost unaccountable to the public, and they are like predators. And in order for the public to defend themselves against these predators, the only instrument that they have is the state. Now, it's not a very powerful weapon because the state is very closely allied to the predator. And the only way to change this is to replace industrial feudalism by industrial democracy. And industrial democracy means that working people will control the institutions, the factories, the commerce, distribution, the communities, and so on. At that point, there also should be a gradual disappearance of the state. We will be replaced by voluntary associations in places of work, in places where people live.
C'est les Soviets? C'est pas les Soviets?
Exactly. Well, it was the Soviets, but remember that the first thing that Lenin and Trotsky did was destroy the Soviet and the workers' councils.
Et les conseils de travailleurs.
And in fact, every democratic institution in
les institutions démocratiques où se retrouvaient les gens.
I mean, they were the worst enemies of socialism in the 20th century, and for principled reasons. I mean, they were orthodox Marxists who believed that a poor, backward peasant society like Russia couldn't have socialism. So it had to be driven by force to industrialization. But it is, in my view, correct that they were the worst enemies of socialism in the 20th century. This I understood when I was 10 years old, 1940. It was a long question, but I'll just summarize it. Suppose we favor a stateless society in the long run. It would be a mistake to work for the elimination. I've said that it would be a mistake to work for the elimination of the state in the short run, and we should be trying to strengthen the state because it's needed on the check of power of large corporations. Yet the tendency of a lot of anarchist research, my own too, and others, is to show that the power of large corporations derives from state privilege, and governments tend to get captured by concentrated private interests. That would seem to imply that the likely beneficiary of a more powerful state is going to be the same corporate elite we're trying to oppose. So if business both derives from the state and is so good at capturing the state, why isn't abolishing the state a better strategy for defeating business power than enhancing the state's power would be? Well, there's a very simple answer to that. It's not a strategy. And since it's not a strategy at all, it can't be a better strategy. The strategy of eliminating the state is back in the level of let's have peace and justice. How do you proceed to eliminate the state? Okay. Can you think of a way of doing it? I mean, if there were a way of doing it in the existing world, everything would collapse and be destroyed. You just can't do it. I mean, there's nothing to replace it. If there was a rich, powerful network of cooperatives, community organizations, worker control of industry, extending over the whole country and the whole world, in fact. Yeah, then you could talk about eliminating the state. But to talk about eliminating the state in the world as it exists is simply to keep yourself in some remote academic seminar or small group, saying, gee, this would be nice. It's not a strategy, so it can't be a better strategy. We are faced with realities. Well, okay, if you're interested in the long-term project of the questioner, namely dissolving state and corporate power, you should be paying attention to that. And you should be organizing workers on that. You shouldn't leave it to Rush Limbaugh to organize people with real legitimate grievances. That's the way to fascism. You should be out there organizing them themselves on their concerns. Their concerns can be related to, and easily related to, much longer term anarchist style projects, but that's where anarchists should be working.